Every generation has its rivalry. Pelé versus Maradona, Messi versus Ronaldo, and now Mbappe versus Haaland. Two names that don't just define football's present, they're sculpting its future. They represent two visions of the modern game. Artistry versus efficiency. Elegance versus destruction. Light versus thunder. One, a lightning bolt from Paris, elegant, effortless, lethal. The other, a Nordic machine, raw, ruthless, unstoppable. They're not just footballers, they're symbols of evolution, of dominance, of what's to come. And while the world watches, they race toward immortality. Because in football, legends aren't born, they're built. This is Kylian Mbappé versus Erling Haaland, the future of football. When Messi and Ronaldo began to fade, a silence fell over football. For more than a decade, they ruled everything. Every trophy, every record, every conversation. Fans wondered, could anyone ever fill that void? The game seemed smaller without its gods. But football never waits. It evolves. And from the shadows, two prodigies emerged. Kylian Mbappé, the boy who conquered the world at 19. Erling Haaland, precision, the Viking who treated goals like breathing. Both were born into expectation, raised on obsession. Both carried the weight of nations before they turned 25. They didn't ask to be compared. But destiny doesn't ask permission. The new era wasn't announced, it erupted. And every fan, every pundit, every child watching knew what they were witnessing. A new rivalry for the ages. From the streets of Bondy, Paris, Kylian Mbappe's story reads like mythology. A child of footballing parents. A kid who slept with posters of Ronaldo on his wall. He didn't just dream, he visualized greatness. At 16, Monaco gave him a debut. At 18, he was leading them to a Champions League semifinal. And at 19, the World Cup. France's youngest hero since Pelé, dancing through defenders as if physics were a suggestion. But Mbappé isn't just fast, he's inevitable. He doesn't sprint, he glides, leaving defenders staring into empty space. He carries himself with an aura half elegance, half arrogance. A mix of Thierry Henry's precision, Cristiano Ronaldo's confidence, and something entirely his own. An electricity that hums in every touch. When Mbappé accelerates, the stadium gasps. When he scores, the world freezes. He's not just a footballer, he's a spectacle. And in every glance, every flick, every smirk, you can see a man who already knows he was born to be king. If Mbappe is poetry, Haaland is physics. Brute force disguised as football. Born in Leeds, raised in Norway, he grew up watching tapes of Zlatan but dreaming bigger. His father, a Premier League warrior, taught him toughness. His mother, an athlete, gave him power. At Salzburg, he didn't score, he detonated. Hat tricks in his Champions League debut. Defenders left spinning, goalkeepers helpless. At Dortmund, he became a phenomenon. Goals every game, celebrations like war cries. And then came Manchester City, the perfect machine for the perfect striker. Haaland doesn't play football, he hunts it. He's built like a linebacker but moves like a panther. Every run timed to perfection, every strike violent and pure. When he scores, there's no art, only dominance. He doesn't just beat defenders, he erases them. He's football's most terrifying equation. Speed plus power plus precision equals chaos. And in an era obsessed with data, Haaland is the algorithm. They are opposites in every way. Mbappé rhythm, finesse, and flair. Haaland power, precision, and rage. Mbappé plays with art. Haaland plays with fury. One wins with beauty, the other with brutality. Mbappé is football's painter, every move a brushstroke, a game of elegance and anticipation. He thrives in space. He seduces the ball. Haaland is the hammer, a force of nature who doesn't create chances, he consumes them. Every movement screams inevitability. Every shot feels like destiny, written in metal. And yet, both share something deeper, an obsession with victory. A hunger that borders on madness. A will to dominate the era they've inherited. Fire versus ice. Passion versus perfection. Emotion versus engineering. It's not just a clash of styles. It's the evolution of football itself. The stats are absurd. Mbappé, over 250 goals before 25. World Cup champion. Golden Boot winner. The face of France, the heartbeat of PSG, and soon perhaps the soul of Madrid. Haaland, a record-breaking Premier League debut. Over 50 goals in his first City season. Champions League juggernaut. A striker who makes history look easy. But numbers only tell half the story. Mbappe defines games by moments: the clutch, the chaos, the spotlight. Haaland defines games by domination: relentless, efficient, cold. Mbappe paints history in color. Haaland engraves it in stone. And for fans, that's the impossible question. Do you value art or annihilation? If legacy is written in moments, Mbappe's are etched in gold. The 2022 World Cup final, Messi versus Mbappe. Old god versus rising star. And under the heaviest spotlight of all, Mbappe delivered a masterpiece, a hat trick in a World Cup final. Carrying France on his back when the world thought it was over. He didn't win the trophy, but he conquered the stage. That day, the planet didn't see a young prodigy. It saw the future. Haaland, meanwhile, watched from home. Norway didn't make it, but you can almost imagine the fire building in him, the hunger, the fury, the need to prove himself on that same stage. Two paths divided by fate. But the next World Cup? It could be their collision point. And when that happens, football itself might shake. Their duel won't be settled in interviews or numbers. It will be written under floodlights in Champions League finals, in El Clásicos, in Golden Nights. Rumors swirl about Madrid. Some say Mbappe's destiny has always been white. Others whisper Haaland's name, lurking in city blue. For now. But imagine it both in Spain. The rivalry reborn in its purest form. Speed versus strength, flair versus firepower. El Clásico redefined for a new generation. They are not just competing for trophies, they're competing for the soul of modern football, to be the one that defines how the next decade feels. Because this isn't just sport, it's storytelling. And every era needs its heroes and its rivals. Both men are addicted to the chase. Haaland's hunger is mechanical, he needs to score. He studies movement, diet, even sleep like a scientist of success. He's pure precision, obsessed with repetition, rhythm, and revenge. Mbappe's drive is emotional. He thrives under pressure, feeds off the roar of the crowd. Every goal is theater, every sprint an act of defiance. He plays not just to win, but to prove. Mbappe once said, "I'm not here to be average, I'm here to make history." Haaland once said, "I want to be the best, that's my obsession." Two philosophies, two obsessions, but both are chasing the same horizon: immortality. Football is evolving faster than ever. Technology, analytics, AI, the game has changed. But amid all the noise, two names cut through the data. Mbappe evolution, the blend of technique and instinct. Haaland revolution, the fusion of biology and efficiency. They are football's future and its mirror. They represent everything this sport has become: faster, smarter, global. In them, we see two paths for tomorrow's game: the artist and the assassin, the dreamer and the destroyer. And whichever one reigns supreme, the sport will never be the same again. So who's the future of football? The artist or the assassin? The Prince of Paris or the Viking of Manchester? One paints football in color, the other tears through it in grayscale. One dances through defenders, the other crushes them under his boots. They are opposites, but together they define what comes next. Because rivalries like this don't divide the game. They fuel it. They give us reason to watch, to argue, to dream. In 10 years, maybe one will lift more trophies. Maybe one will score more goals. But in truth, they've already done the impossible. They've made football feel alive again. Tell us who will define the next decade, Mbappe or Haaland? This is Inside the Game. And this was Kylian Mbappé versus Erling Haaland, the future of football.